All right, Gene, welcome. This is going to be your analysis from our little one-on-one session on December 6, 2023. What I'm going to do is I've edited the clips together. I'm going to let them play. You can watch them. And then what we'll do is go over kind of a brief discussion, kind of like we did in the session, but it'll be like a little refresher of where efficient swimming comes from, why you want to think of it that way. And then we'll come back and start to analyze your videos, and then I'll put together a summary sheet that'll come with this video of everything that we talked about and what you should really focus on. So here is your video. The beginning, and usually I like to do a little just kind of basic refresher on where really fast, efficient swimming comes from. So, and please forgive my stick figure drawings, but this is kind of the limitations of the telestrator. So, what we want to think about is we want to try to get as long and flat on the water as possible. So, the longer that water line is, basically the more distance we're going to be able to get per stroke. And in swimming, DPS, distance per stroke, is kind of that benchmark of efficiency. Whenever we're working with new swimmers, kind of like kids that are just starting, for the first few years, that's pretty much what you work on is distance per stroke. So you're trying to get them to take less strokes per 25 and really build up that efficiency in the movement that they're making. So it's not only the strength and conditioning, but then it's also the technique. So it's all kind of rolled into one. The second thing we get, so if we're looking more kind of head on here, okay, and those are your lopsided shoulders and your head, and there are your arms, and then here is the water line again. So if we are looking at from head on, if we're long and flat on the water, and then if we're thinking kind of along triathlon terms, like with the bike, where we're trying to get as kind of aerodynamic, in this case, as hydrodynamic as possible, and minimize frontal drag. So it's the same thing as the bike. You're trying to get really long on the water. Hopefully then what you've got is your shoulders, your head, and the rest of your body's all tucked up behind kind of your shoulders and your head. And then your arms are just there as the levers in the water to create the propulsion. So that's the minimum kind of frontal drag we can get to. So then the last thing you get is if you think kind of 90 degrees from that shoulder joint, if you're long and flat on the water, and then starting around the nose and going through the belly button, what we get then is all of these really big muscles that are able to work together. So think lat, pecs, deltoid, trap, scapular muscles, core muscles, hip muscles, everything working together to get as much pressure as you can get on your hand and hold it through that pull. So a quick review here. Long on the water gets us maximum distance per stroke, so maximum efficiency, minimum amount of drag, and then maximum leverage on the water or maximum propulsion. Because it's just that really simple idea that the more pressure you can get and hold on your hand, the more propulsion you're going to generate. So pressure equals propulsion. So if we are angled down in the water just slightly, and it doesn't even have to be by a lot. So if it's just like that, we'll move this to here, and then this goes like that. So then what happens is the first thing that's happened is we've shrunk that water line. So now we're going to have to take more strokes to go the same distance. The second thing that we get is this all becomes drag now that you're pulling against. And then 90 degrees is still 90 degrees, but it kind of shifts everything more out in front of the stroke, where you're really only able to lever with some of the smaller muscles in your upper body. And by the time you get back to the really meaty part, you're kind of having to recover already. The other thing that this angle does is it puts it where the shoulder then starts out a lot higher, where the hand starts out kind of above the shoulder. So then you end up just pressing down on the water instead of pulling yourself forward. So I did actually a little experiment in the endless pool. I put a heart rate monitor on and just swam at my kind of normal, regular pace in the endless pool. And my heart rate was 105. Then what I did was I kept the current running at the same pace. I intentionally dropped my back end, and my heart rate in a very short period of time was up to 148. I was having to pull substantially harder on the water to maintain that pace, and my stroke tempo had gone up by about 20 or 25%. So it really wasn't a sustainable pace anymore. All right, now we're back. So, going by what we were just talking about, what you want to think about is, let's take a quick look at just body position in the water. So if you look here, this is kind of the angle that you're on in the water. And, we'll get some good views from the side underwater that'll give you even a better look at it, just like you saw. But, what we want to think about is trying to get as long and flat on the water as we can. And kind of what we talked about in the session where when we used that brick kickboard and it was really forcing you didn't have any other choice but to engage the core in a much more dramatic way than you probably ever have before. That's what we want to force in the practices over and over and over and over again. So, one of the things that I would do is I would recommend you getting one of those brick kickboards and throwing some fins on and just doing some 25s fast kick with that to really force that core engagement so that you get a really good feel for what the core being engaged feels like and what you have to do to kind of make that happen in a practice. All in all, the movement is pretty good. You're nice and fluid. There aren't it doesn't look like at this point any dead spots. You're rotating a little much to get the breath, and we'll get a good view of that kind of overhead. And then here we get to see, kind of this view right here. So then you got to think all of this is drag that you're pulling against. And what we want all of this to kind of be up. And then the majority of your body can hide behind your head, shoulders, that sort of thing. So here's one of the things you're doing pretty good is, this looks decent. Well, we're more like, because there's your shoulder. So it's got a pretty good angle. It looks like you're already setting the catch right here. The elbow's up. The elbow isn't below the wrist, so that looks good. And then you really start kind of pulling yourself forward right through there. I mean, that looks good. I mean, I've got professional triathletes that don't have that good of a catch right there. And for you to be doing that in this body position, which isn't, kind of normal, typically what you'll see is the elbow will kind of come down right away. And then the start of the stroke will be just pressing down, which will then just kind of further put you in that kind of angled or bad body position. Here on the left side, you can see that it's a little bit more, and part of it is because you're breathing right there, but you can see, the elbow's dropped, the wrist is a little bit higher. You're just pressing down. Don't really start pulling yourself forward till right about there. So about there, you can see kind of you start grabbing the water and pulling yourself forward. That would be one of the things that we'd want to work on. But again, that kind of relates back to the core engagement and then the amount of instability you're creating from that breath. And, this is some of the stuff that we talked about in our little one-on-one session. So here you get to see now some of this is the endless pool. So this is all drag, but, some of it is the water's kind of the current is running to push all this down. But again, what it's pointing out is probably the core isn't as engaged or as strong as it needs to be or connected. So again, we get back to that idea of, hey, let's use the brick kickboard. So we'll keep on going. And then when we look here, this is one of the things that we wanted to work on in our session. You can see right here, here's the feet coming apart. It's because of this rotation right here that's causing that. And then here we go. You can see kind of the arm goes that direction. You're moving midline that way. When really what we're trying to get to is we want everything to kind of drive straight forward from our hips, each side even equally. Everything just drives perfectly straightforward. We don't want to spend any time where we're going this way, that way, this way, that way, because that's all just wasted energy, wasted momentum, not driving us perfectly straightforward. And, that's because the reason we want to think like that is just because of the cost of drag in swimming, the cost of being in water as a person. So it's just really, really high. So you can see here, here's those feet coming apart again. That's all to try and create stability. It's all the instability that you're kind of creating. And yeah, that's one of the things that we want to think about. So, let's see what else. Yeah, I mean, that would be the main kind of thing that I would think about right now would be, just what we worked on with that position 11 drill, just getting the core to engage really long, really straight on the water. Here we can see, let's take a look and see what happens when we breathe. So here's a big turn. So here we can take a look at, there's the plane of the water. There's your elbow or shoulder angle off the water. You're kind of in the 50 to, 60 degree range, probably somewhere in there. We typically want to see for a distance swimmer somewhere in the 30 to 40 degree range. And so probably a little bit more like this. So let's go here. Yeah. So a little bit more like that. A little bit more of a relaxed recovery, but we want that regardless of whether or not we're breathing on the side. The breath shouldn't impact the body rotation at all. It should almost be acting separately from what we're doing. And then you can see kind of there's that arm coming in again. We're going to call this midline. You're definitely kind of crossing over that midline, throwing a lot of momentum in a direction that you don't want it to go, that you got to correct for eventually. Okay, so let's take a look here. And here you can see, here's that rotation. So you've moved underwater midline way out here, and then the other hand is way down here. So you are way, way outside where midline is. Where all the leverage is. So, we typically like to see, kind of your hand maybe in line with your shoulder. That's probably where you've got the most amount of leverage. And, you can see right here, just because of this rotation, how far outside you are. And then, you can see down here, here's a foot coming way outside your body frame to try and stabilize. So there's just a lot of instability going on. And, we want the stroke to be a little bit more compact, a little bit more stable. Just remember, the more stability that we can get, we're already in this really dynamic, unstable environment. So the more stability that we can get in the water that we provide, the more we're going to be able to lever the water, generate more propulsion, be more efficient. So here we go through here. You can see, here's the feet down here. Those are all that's just all drag that you're pulling against. Typically, let's see if we can do it one without the breath. get an angle on the arm. Nope, doesn't look like we're going to get it. So you can kind of see over here, these angles right here, we typically want, somewhere between 110 degrees. I think it's kind of tough to tell from this angle. I don't know if we're really getting it. But you can see kind of here the hand is going, up. You're dumping a lot of pressure, when it should be just facing straight back towards the back of the pool. Let's take a look on this side. Here you can see we're a little bit flat. This might be a little bit better. Yeah, so it's pretty wide open. It'd be much better if you could get it kind of, maybe about like that. Have this side come down a little bit more. So, you're going to be a little bit more square to the bottom of the pool. Because you can see right here, there just isn't much leverage. You're not able to hold much water, accelerate the hand that much. It's just not a ton of leverage. And then you can see kind of here at the back, you've turned your hand up when it should be still facing towards the back of the pool, pressing that water, throwing that water towards the back of the pool, which is, what we'd really want to get the most out of the stroke. And then here was the kick with the brick, and you can remember some of the cues where we're trying to either bring the belly button up into the spine, lengthen out like someone's pulling us from the top of our head, or increase that distance from the belly button to the sternum. And then same thing, we want that cue that we used for the core engagement, and same thing when we're using this PVC pipe, trying to make sure that we're entering in shoulder width apart. So as always, I really appreciate you coming out to this clinic, the one-on-one clinic we did. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know. I am more than happy to answer any questions, just to make sure that this is really crystal clear for you, and that you can go into practice with a very, very focused approach to what you want to work on and change in your stroke. So again, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you back in the pool soon.